The final set of influences are called situational factors. And your book mentions them and then, of course, immediately dismisses them and doesn't spend any time talking about them. So let me cover some of the situational factors because I think that they're really, really important. And they are things that a marketing manager might be able to have some influence over. So the situational factors include physical surroundings, social surroundings, task and usage, time, antecedent states, and economic circumstances. So let's start with physical things. All right. Consumers learn information as they experience life, and consumers try to make sense of information by making generalizations. Consumers try to be consistent whenever risk is high, and consumers do the best they can given the uncertain environment in which they operate. And experience situation factors are one of the most critical influences of buyer behavior. My point behind this is that you're an adaptive consumer. As you experience life and as you experience consuming situations, you then adapt to those situations and put that in your memory bank and use that for future. We are adaptive consumer nation. So how do we deal with things like complexity, ambiguity, and even more complexity? We live in an environment that forces us to make decisions every day, and we live in an environment that's repetitive. So we need to have pattern recognition skills to categorize new situations as they arise, determine what kinds of past experiences are appropriate. You're an adaptive consumer. Think about driving to school every day for school. All right, so you start driving to school and you get to the parking lot every day and you always say, well, I'm going to go over by the student union to see if there are any spots over there. And you drive by every day and there are never any spots. Well, eventually what will happen? Well, eventually you'll say to yourself, there's no reason for me to drive by there. Let me just go to the Thomas and Mack garage, get in that garage and park my car and be done with it. This is you adapting to the situation as a consumer. All right, so let's talk about physical surroundings. When we talk about physical surroundings, we are talking about the senses and the sorts of things that influence the physical surroundings that influence your buying behavior. For example, when you go to the grocery store, is there music being played? You might not notice, but the answer to that is yes. Does music influence your buying behavior? Well, there have been a number of studies to test this, and the answer is yes. In a study that was done in a grocery store, they found that if they played faster music, individuals shopped faster, spent less time in the grocery store, and bought fewer items. On the other hand, if they played slower music, that is just a little bit slower tempoed music, people actually spent longer times in the store and bought more items. They then did the same sort of study in a restaurant. And what they found in a restaurant was if they play fast, up-tempo music, individuals would eat faster, spend less on drinks, and leave faster. On the other hand, if they played slower music at the restaurant, people took longer to eat, spent more money on drinks and were more likely to buy desserts and just spent more time leisurely dining. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us what? That individuals are influenced by simple things like even the music playing in the background. Some other physical surroundings that influence buyer behavior. One is called store location or gravitational pull and credibility. So for instance, we have what's called Restaurant Row over here on Flamingo. This is where all the restaurants are together. Why would you put a restaurant next to 5 other restaurants? Well, the argument for that is what? Is that people who are looking for a restaurant are more likely to end up in that location, and you're more likely to get some of the business that is driving by thinking about where they might go to have dinner or lunch. Another example of that is the auto mall. Why put your automobile dealership near everyone else's? Well, the argument is what? The result of that is everybody who wants to shop for cars eventually ends up at the auto mall. There are things like, for instance, simple things like store layout. Which goods do you put at eye level, and what about end aisle displays, and what about the store layout? All of these things greatly influence your buying behavior. So the store layout influence your buying behavior? Absolutely. What kind of products do you put at eye level? You put eye level products that people wouldn't ordinarily buy, but that have the highest margin. What do you put at lower levels? Well, more of the necessities and things that people are looking for and easily will find no matter where they're located in the store. Another aspect of physical surroundings is the store atmospherics and layout. This is why most grocery stores vent their bakeries to the front of the store, so that as you're walking into the grocery store, you can smell all those wonderful smells of the bakery. And so the kinds of things that affect atmospherics are the look of the store, the layout of the store, the music or the sounds that are being emitted from the store, and the smells of the store. So store atmospherics has to do with all the senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, etc. What about social surroundings? Well, social surroundings has to do with the other people who are around you. So unlike the physical surroundings, this has to do with the social surroundings, people who are around you. For instance, if you're shopping with friends, you might behave differently than if you're shopping by yourself. Things that might influence your buying behavior would be crowds, the consumer density. Most people don't like to shop with crowds or in empty stores. Things about standing in line to wait for a table, all those sorts of things. All those factors influence your buying behavior. If you're shopping with a friend, for instance, you might buy a different product than if you were shopping by yourself, because your friend, you believe that it goes back to that whole idea of self-image maintenance. So think about social surroundings and how they influence your buying behavior. There is task and usage, all right? And one of the things we find is that if you're giving a product as a gift, you're more likely to spend more money on it than if you were buying it for your own personal consumption. There is this issue of durable versus non-durable goods. A durable good is something that lasts a long time, like an appliance or a pair of shoes or clothing, where non-durable goods are things like meals, gasoline, things that are used up as you consume them. And it turns out that people tend to spend a lot more time on a durable good that costs the same price as a non-durable good. One of the reasons for this is because you have to live with that decision for a much longer period of time. It's important that marketers understand the needs and the need differences based on tasks. Next, we have time. There are two issues. There is time as a product, and then there's time pressure. Time as a product has to do with how long it takes for you to actually purchase something and whether or not that buying a particular product saves you time. The argument would be, well, I'm going to buy this product and it will save me a bunch of time. Well, then saving time is an attribute. Also, things about saving time when you're buying it. For instance, the idea behind buying something online on somewhere like Amazon is that it takes a lot less time to buy it online than it does to get in your car, drive down to the 2 or 3 different stores, look at 2 or 3 different brands in each store. The solution, buy it online. Buying online and consuming online is considered to be time as a product. Then there's this issue of time pressure. What we find is that when people get under pressure, their purchase decision behavior changes. If you're under extreme pressure, you tend not to consider as many alternatives, and you tend to purchase the first alternative that meets your needs and seems reasonable. Next, we have antecedent states. And this is sort of important and sort of funny because this has to do with things like thirsty, hunger, tired, moody. These are called antecedent states, and they greatly influence your buyer behavior. If any of you ever gone out and you went shopping and you were just so tired that you just said, the heck with it, and you left the store. That's because the lack of sleep changes your physiological state, and as a result changes your purchasing behavior. Do thirst and hunger influence your buying behavior? Absolutely. Lots of times if you're thirsty and you go to the grocery store, you'll find that you walk out with Gatorade and bottled water and Powerade and lemonade and 2 12-packs of beer and all kinds of other things. If you don't think that thirst and hunger influence your buying behavior, let me suggest this. Next time you get ready to go to the grocery store, don't eat anything for a long period of time, however long is for you, 6 hours, 4 hours, 12 hours, and then go to the grocery store. Your buying behavior pattern changes dramatically depending on whether or not you're hungry. If you are very hungry, you will find yourself buying things at the store that you wouldn't ordinarily buy. Sardines and mustard sauce or whatever else it might be. So understand that antecedent states have a huge impact on buying behavior, and as a result, marketers need to try to make sure that you're in the right state of mind when you shop. That includes making drinking water or something else available so perhaps you're not as thirsty, not as hungry, maybe not as moody, trying to get you in the right frame of mind. And then finally, there's economic circumstances. This is that old story about, for instance, how much cash you have on hand. Sometimes a good example of this for individuals like you might be, you're coming home from school, you'd like to stop and get some fast food, you look in your wallet, you've only got $3. Well, that probably changes where you stop to buy something. And let's just say that you don't want to use your debit card. There's no money left on your debit card. Well, if you only have $3 in your pocket, maybe the restaurant you go to is different than if you had $10 in your pocket. So maybe if you had $10 in your pocket, you might go to In-N-Out Burger, or you might go and get a couple of chicken sandwiches at Chick-fil-A. But with only $3 in your pocket, maybe you stop at Del Taco or Taco Bell or some other very, very low-priced restaurant. This is the idea that the economic circumstances at hand can influence your buying behavior.